Steady Steady Freefrom. Today we are going to make scones. Okay, so the recipe that we're using today is from an Aussie with Crohns. So we're going to be making scones, and we've got in here 3 cups of ground almonds. So you see there, and I can substitute almond flour. I don't know if ground almonds and almond flour have a different absorbency rate, because almond flour is really fine, it's kind of super fine, whereas this is more coarse. So it's not really coarse, it's not like almond meal, but it is quite coarse. Okay, so there we go. So that's 3 cups of ground almonds here. Now we're also going to add a 1/4 cup of coconut flour. Now I've just switched brands of coconut flour, so they do act a bit differently, so hopefully this will be okay. So I'm just going to put that straight in there. By the way, we've got the oven on fan 160, regular 180, and high we've got 350, and gas mark 4. So they're your oven temperatures. So we're just going to combine those 2 flours, kind of spread out the lumps of the coconut flour. If you wanted to, you could sift it. I've never been a big fan of sifting because it just takes too long, and I'm too lazy, too impatient, and I figure that all the lumps will work themselves out anyway. So we're going to add a 1/2 teaspoon of bicarbonate of soda. I've got 1/3 of a cup here of coconut oil, which I've melted. Now you could use butter if you wanted to, but the recipe says coconut oil, and I've not made these before, so we'll follow the recipe. Yesterday I actually tried to make some pecan cookies and they failed miserably, so that was because I tried to mess with the recipe. Now it says we want 1/2 cup of nut milk. So it does actually say 1/2 to 3/4 of a cup of nut milk. So we're not sure how it's going to be. And especially with the change of brand with coconut flour, we'll go with 1/2 cup and see what happens. So I'm just going to pour that in, and we'll give it a really good mix. Now, because I'm not very good at following instructions, it actually says in the recipe that you're supposed to rub the coconut flour in with your fingertips, suggesting that you don't melt it. However, as usual for me, I just guess what I'm doing. And here we are. So we'll see how it works out. Now it does actually say to knead this on the side. And obviously we're used to rolling things out between greaseproof sheets, so not too sure how this is going to go. So it suggests we put a bit of almond flour on the surface, so we'll clear a tiny bit of workspace because we only have a tiny bit of workspace. And it says to sprinkle some almond flour on the surface. Very dubious about this, but we'll go with it. We don't want it sticking, so let's see how that goes. Now I believe we roll these quite thick. Going to move it regularly to make sure it's not sticking. Right, okay, so we've got to be careful because we're already about there. So it says 3 to 4 centimeters thick, so that's really quite thick. Okay, so I've just had a really good look at the instructions. This is about, it's just over 1 inch thick. So It's probably 2.5 centimeters, maybe a little bit more. So it is actually thinner than the recipe suggests. However, the recipe says it's going to yield 10 to 12 scones. So, and to use a 5 centimeter cutter. Now this is the smallest cutter I have. It really is very small, okay? It's about the size of a large egg yolk. So it's really not very big. And it's probably going to get swallowed up in the dough. But let's go for it. Now, obviously this doesn't act like traditional dough, so it has come out with the cutter. There we go. So we'll see we've got those nice fluted edges, which is very pretty. So we're just going to pop that on the baking tray. And you can see how thick it is. Okay. I shouldn't imagine these are going to rise very high. So we'll cut the remainder out of this lot of dough. So there we are, we've got 9 out of that first cut. So now we need to re-roll the pastry, or the dough, if you can even call it dough. Okay, you can see it's holding together really firmly, so that half cup was good, I think. I guess we'll find out when we taste them. Ooh, nearly dropped it on the floor there. Okay, so sprinkle a bit more ground almonds, almond flour. Let's roll that out again. Again, we don't need to roll it out very much. I'm acting like it's flour, it's not even sticking. Okay, so we've already got 9. So if we're going as per the recipe, we're looking for another 3 out of this, and I think we're going to get more. I think we might get 5, but obviously they're going to be a shallower. But if it was any deeper, I don't think I'd be able to get my cookie cutter out, because it is as deep as the cookie cutter. You could probably use one of those with the handles on. Okay, we're up to 13. I dare say, if you don't have a cookie cutter, you could even just roll these into balls and flatten them out a bit. So this last one, I am just going to do that. Roll it into a ball and flatten it out. So it's about the same thickness. Okay, so there we have it. We've got 16 with a little ball there. Could be quite interesting. And we'll pop them in the oven now. Don't think they're going to rise very much or spread very much, because there's nothing really in them apart from the baking soda to make them do anything. Now I'm going to put them in the oven. I've already got it preheated, and we're going for 15 minutes. Before we put them in the oven, we're going to wash them with an egg. So I've just got 1 egg in here that's just beaten, and we're just going to give them a little bit of a glaze, each one. Now I dare say you could omit the egg glaze and just use milk, or not glaze them at all. And if you just did a milk glaze or no glaze, they'd be vegan. There we are. So here we are. They came out of the oven about 10 minutes ago, and they did actually take about 20 minutes. I did leave them longer, and you can see that we've got a nice kind of golden brown on the top. Wouldn't want them to go any browner than that, and that is the egg wash that has done that. They haven't really risen. I've checked kind of by the side of the cutter, and they're still the same height as the cutter, so they've not really risen. There is only one that's taller, and that's because I rolled that mixture out thicker, so that hasn't risen. So now we're going to do the cheeky taste test and see what they taste like. Okay, so we've cut it in half, and you can see, I mean, it looks lovely and kind of scone-like from the edges. And then when we open up the middle, doesn't actually look like it's properly cooked, so I'm not sure. So we'll do just a basic taste test of how it is now, just to check for the texture and see what it tastes like. They're not very nice. So, claggy is the first word that springs to mind. And they've not, because it's not risen, there's no air to them. And I don't think that it's cooked inside. So what I'm actually going to do is I'm going to put them back in the oven. I'm going to turn them upside down to cook for another few minutes. Probably about 5 minutes to get them back up to temperature and get them cooking again. There's no sweetener in this mix, so when we put jam on it, it may be a bit better. That's much better. It's still very claggy though. Okay, so we put them back in the oven for a bit, probably about 10-15 minutes if I'm honest, and the centres are better. They're not completely there, they're still quite soft in the centre, and I think where I went wrong was I melted the coconut oil. I think if I'd have rubbed it in, it would have been a shorter mix and there would have been a bit more air in it. I think because I melted the coconut oil, it was the wrong thing to do, so don't do that, don't do what I did. After having kind of tried them out a bit more, they are better. I have already done another cheeky taste test to see whether they're actually going to work or not. So I'm going to pop a bit of jam on this one because they're very plain, and there's no salt, there's no sugar, so that's where we are with them. So I'm not putting any butter on. I'm just going to put a big blob of raspberry jam on. Okay. The outside, it's kind of crispy. It's difficult to say. So, and they are kind of bite-sized when you put them in half. They are lovely. If you were able to have dairy and you were able to have clotted cream, they would be fabulous. Okay. Obviously I'm dairy free, so it would be coconut cream for me, and that would probably be lush as well. But I'm not in coconut cream at the moment. I'm not in that kind of mood. So jam it works for me. And they're still warm, so they're nice. And they're not burnt, despite having been in the oven for ages. I haven't burnt. I've been okay. So next time I might do a do-over and rub the mixture in and see what happens next time. If you've got any feedback at all on where I went wrong, absolutely tell me. So this just goes to show that not everything goes according to plan, but you still end up with something very edible and lovely, with a bit of homemade jam or shop-bought jam, whatever you want to put on it, a bit of cream, a bit of coconut cream, butter, whatever you want. You can have these lovely, lovely scones. Okay, so that is the end of the video today. I will see you next time in the kitchen. Okay, cheeky taste test part 2. This is my husband Lee.
Hello. Yeah, it's not bad.
Yeah? Well, ooh. Oh! That's a miracle. Normally he'll go, that's horrible. So they must be all right. See you next time.